Okay, folks, welcome to this morning's Fife Property Show. Today, we're actually going to be talking about the most difficult thing that everyone faces as a seller. Is your property going nowhere? Is your asking price or your estate agent actually holding up your sale? It's often a dilemma that sellers go through in a market that tends to slow down. But we have some of the solutions to come through the show. So listen on into this. What can really happen with house prices? Could your mindset actually be blocking your move? That's quite an interesting one.
Mhm.
Why don't buyers just make a lower offer? That's
Mhm.
that's a dilemma everybody faces.
Mhm.
Will waiting cost you more to trade up?
Mhm.
And is your agent in the way of? Is your agent actually in the way you find a buyer?
Yeah,
Because
can
often it
happen.
can happen, but
Mhm.
it's quite difficult to understand if that is actually factually correct or is it just a misinterpretation of the circumstances at the time.
Mm.
So we're going to talk about this on the show. I mean, if your home's been in the market for quite a while, somebody probably needs to something probably needs to change to get
Mhm.
your move underway. Isn't that right, Perry?
Absolutely. I mean, the latest government figures show the market performing is around about 80%. We talk about this often on a Sunday when we do the update, Jim, don't we?
Yep.
And it's all about the transactions. And again, you'll get an update on the Sunday slots if you watch those. But from September of 23, it's around 80%, 18% down on 22. And
Yeah.
often those headlines that you gave there at the opening, Jim, are normally the things that interfere with someone getting moving. So given that buyers are still buying, why are so many homes still not selling? That's the question, isn't it?
Well, I think they're actually possibly selling. I think it's the fact that they've been on the market for quite a bit longer than what was typically normal. Remember, in the last 3 years, we've actually gone through a boom period. There's even some estate agents and there's some sellers out there that have only ever experienced a boom period, and they
Yeah.
actually don't understand what it is like when the market slows down pre
Mhm.
2019. And
Yeah.
you actually get into a fact of your estate agent has to have knowledge and expertise in what we call chain building. In
Yeah.
order to, and that's in order, if somebody needs to sell in order for it to buy, and someone else needs to sell in order for it to buy, and that's what
Mhm.
chain building's all about, and that's how it happens.
Mhm.
So we're going to talk about that all the way throughout here, and
Mhm.
how to identify that, how to get to the root source of
Mhm.
what the issue is, or what the issues are, because it might be multiple
Yeah.
issues that cause the problem. It could be, as I said before, it could be the fact that your mindset is actually blocking your move of yourself. It's yourself.
Mhm.
It's the issue. It's the fact that
Mhm.
you don't. You know the old expression, you can't see the forest for the trees. And
That's it.
often people just do. Often people like even like myself, you
Mhm.
don't like someone else telling you effectively that you could be wrong,
Mhm.
but
It's
you're not
also
actually seeing it.
Yeah, but I think it's also, Jim, it's a starting point expectation as well. Are the buyers actually getting in their own way of moving
Yeah.
because actually their expectations are not clear, or they've been given the wrong advice, maybe from an agent or from a friend or from their sister's husband's dog?
Aye. Woof.
The
Hey,
expert.
Alfie said, it's like, wait a minute, Alfie can't even talk. Where did you get that in your head? We do it. We have self-talk. We
Yeah.
all do it. We all talk to ourselves when we're
Mhm.
alone or in a conversation with someone else. This little voice in the back of your head kicks in and it starts to tell you something possibly completely different.
Mhm.
It's like that. The Jiminy Cricket, it
Mhm.
sits on your shoulder, your
Mhm.
conscience.
Exactly.
And sometimes that voice in your head doesn't have the knowledge and expertise to make a decision on facts,
Mhm.
and it's often based on an emotional decision.
It
So,
is very much so. And I think actually it's the forest for the trees, the wood for the trees, however you want to pronounce that, absolutely does get in your head and gets in your own way. And it's, again, if you go back to old sayings, a problem halved is a problem solved, isn't it?
yeah,
Because
there's no
generally
single
by
answer.
sharing something.
There's no really single answer to this, but the obstacles can be overcome by
Mhm.
exploring what we've just spoken about. So
Mhm.
let's. It's quite a lot to unpack.
Mhm.
So let's take a look at why your home might not be getting enough interest or viewings or offers to
Mhm.
see if there's a path to actually a sale overall. So
Mhm.
what is really happening with house prices? It can be difficult to get a clear picture of house prices right now with conflicting stories. You see it all the time. When I go out to people every single time, I sit down and say, what is your perception of the market right now? What are you actually seeing? What do you think you hear? And I really say, what do you think you hear, rather than what are you actually hearing? Because there's often an interpretation between what you hear and what you take in.
Yeah, I agree with that actually, and it's interesting you say that, because yesterday I was out at 2 separate properties and got 2 different perceptions altogether, and yet all of the information that's out there is available and accessible to all, isn't it? One person says, oh, the property market's really slow, nothing's happening, and the other one says, oh, they're flying off the shelf, aren't they?
Yeah.
How could you get 2 different angles?
Well, I'll tell you why. Here's a current snapshot of the picture. Nationwide and Halifax have reported annual price falls of between 3 and 5% since late 2022. And Zoopla puts growth at a drop of 1.1% over the last year. A drop, but not a collapse. And yet Nationwide and Halifax paint a different picture. When I put that into context, though, I keep saying to everybody, Nationwide and Halifax are only assessing their customers. They don't have whole of market information. They only have information based on what their customers are doing. And people listen to them because they're a big organization, they're a big company. A McDonald's as such. You know, if somebody was going to talk about, hamburgers, would you listen to your local delicatessen about hamburgers and the quality of hamburgers and the nutrition in hamburgers? Or would you more than likely be listening to McDonald's? And I know that sounds daft, because normally, man on the street would go, well, obviously I'd listen to the nutritionalist, the local person. But because McDonald's is a big corporation, they're highly respected by people, and therefore they're put on what we call a peer group. So people look up to them and respect what they say in terms of how the market is going, especially investors. And then when investors get that message, then what happens is then they begin to say that as well, the same thing. And then it cascades from there. And then a trend is created as a result of it. And this is what happens with Halifax and Nationwide when they put something out. However, the 2 go-tos for me is Zoopla, because Zoopla tend to have more agents and more properties on the market, and also more data at their fingertips, because they collect a lot of data. Zoopla is what we call vertically integrated. In other words, they run and they offer systems and customer record management systems to estate agents and letting agents. So they get data and information at source. Rightmove doesn't get that. Rightmove is just a website that offers services for putting your property on the market. They don't have customer record management systems. They don't have bolt-on systems that go in with that. Zoopla has all that integrated system in a vertical process. In other words, they can actually help you from start to finish on a journey of a property, from the very beginning to the very end, because they have all the systems and businesses that operate in that field. Rightmove don't have that. So Zoopla has a huge amount of data available. The primary go-to for me is the land registry information. It is the be-all and end-all. This is a collation of all information that comes in from every single solicitor. It does every single transaction in every part of the country. And it goes all into the land registry as part and parcel of the government statistics. So when the land registry tells you that prices in Scotland year on year have moved up, who do you think I'm going to believe if Halifax and Nationwide tell me it's going down? It's going to be the land registry. But also combined, and a lot of people actually say about the land registry will be out of date. And you're absolutely right. It's probably 6 months before the transaction was made. However, we combine that with what's happening on the ground right now with us. And right now with us, properties are still going for just over home report value on average. And we know that. And that's real-time data, boots on the ground right now here, not taking into account anything that's happening in anywhere outside Fife. Because the most important thing here is what's happening in Fife, and then let's look at what's happening overall throughout the UK with all the data they're getting. That's the most important thing. So that's why you want to make sure you get all that information from the right source, first of all. However, The trouble with national statistics is they're meaningless at a local level, as I said before, unless you've got the sentiment among buyers, which possibly varies widely across the country. So this is why we collate this information locally as well, real time. So every single time we're monitoring what the home report value is and what the property sale is going for right now in real-time information. This gives a real good accurate assessment for the surveyors especially to be able to feed back to them what is actually happening in the market right now, so they can set the home report value at the right value and not the value based on historical information. Because remember, that's out of date. And if property prices according to land registry is going up 5% in Fife over the last year, and we're getting told it's going down, and if you just listen to the going down, you're more than likely to set the home report at a lower value than what it should be. So it's getting accurate information. It's quite interesting because I was actually speaking to a surveyor the other day. I sent him a property tour. So I was round to the customer's house. It's a bit of unique property. It's very bespoke. You'll not get one of these properties ever again. You don't get them. They're not these properties that you'll build anywhere else. So it's quite unique. And to me personally, it was round about the 600,000 price point. But I thought, the customer says, what do you think? I says, well, I definitely think it starts with a 6. However, let me take a video of the property and let me put it back to the surveyor. In other words, I'm more or less doing a personal property tour, but I'm doing it just for the surveyor. So I'm doing a walkthrough for the surveyor, maybe about a 6 or 8 minute video, and then I send it over to the surveyor. The surveyor walks through with me on that conversation. He actually came back to me and says, look, Jim, I've been in that house before years and years ago. And he also said to me that actually he got his real-time information about what's sold per square meter locally as well there. So he says, based on your information and your results, I definitely think it's 650. So 650, but he says once I'm in the door, if the floor space is a lot bigger, and I suspect it could be, he says it could be as much as 700,000.
That's a vast difference, eh?
Yeah. Now let me just emphasize that. What could have happened here? If I had ignored that and the customer was happy with 600,000, I could have just got, a surveyor to come through the door, and any surveyor, it maybe didn't have that knowledge and expertise, might have said, yeah, I kind of agree with you, it's 600,000. And there's 100,000 potentially lost straight away.
That's a big difference to the client, isn't it?
Yeah. Imagine losing that amount of money. Imagine losing 10 or 20,000 pound in the end result because the process in the beginning wasn't done correctly, and the survey wasn't done correctly, and the surveyor wasn't knowledgeable enough to understand that, and the estate agent wasn't knowledgeable enough to understand that as well. So that's what the key is. And as I said before, it's about combining. I mean, we do know HMA land registry information is behind in the sales. So it's quite possible that the real falls isn't in the public domain yet. But as I said, that's why it's important to get these real-time information. So just like everybody else, property prices in Fife are affected differently around the neighbourhood. So, get in touch if you'd like to know what it's like for your road.
Absolutely. I think as well, especially if you've got something different, like you said, with that particular property, Jim, because it was not a just off the shelf one, that one, was it?
No, they never are. They never are if they're front line to the coast. If they're front line to the seafront and the coast, they're never going to be one-offs. They're never going to be the same as everybody else's. They are going to be one-offs. They're going to be quite unique. They're not all built the same in the beginning. They're all built in different ways. And then over the hundreds of years, because effectively for some of them, there are hundreds of years they've been there, especially for the East Nuke. For some of them, they've actually adapted themselves from maybe even 6 one-bedroom apartments that people lived in the very early days, maybe 200 years ago, to now a townhouse. And yet next doors, maybe now two apartments, one above and one below. And yet it was the same property, but inside it's changed completely different, and the title's been split completely different as well. Maybe to A and B, and then this one next door is exactly all in one. So that's why it's important to understand and to get the right information before you start your journey from a qualified, and I do mean qualified. There is no qualification really for estate agents, because estate agents could start tomorrow and just say they're an estate agent, and no one can do anything about that. They have to comply with some legislation and stuff like that, but it's not really that, and it's not really that encumbrant on them. Not like America, where you have to sit realtor exams. You have to sit them for a period of 6 months, and if you don't pass the realtor exams, you cannot sell a property, because you have to be a qualified realtor to do it. Not in this country. It's completely different. So you could get any man their dog through your door, and,
Yeah.
and they've got a good sales pitch, because a lot of them are pretty good at what they do. You could fall for it straight away. And then
Yeah,
you could be in a position where you've not got the right information to make an informed decision. And the decision that you've just made could, in fact, be the wrong one for you personally.
Also, leads us on nicely, because at the end of the day, if your information's not there and your mindset's not right, that actually might block you from moving and making that choice, mightn't it?
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah, definitely. What's your thoughts on this then?
I mean, for me, nobody sells their home simply because prices are moving up or rising. If they allow disappointing valuation switches, what could have happened in actually that situation, couldn't it? That you've just described. It could overshadow their plans. They may decide just to stay put and actually not move at all, as we said earlier.
It's quite interesting that you said that nobody sells their home simply because prices are rising. So why do people talk so much about the rise in the prices and how much their property is worth then?
Because it's a good conversation, and it could be a negative thing, and it's clickbait news, and it's just something that people want to think that they're knowledgeable about.
Do you think it's a mentality of this time next year we'll be millionaires?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, just like that. And it's the fact that we all like to talk about it, about how much money we've made on our property, but in actual fact, in real terms, you've not really made anything, because you're just trading up and trading down with the next property you'll buy, unless you're actually exiting the market completely, and then you're going into rent accommodation.
Yeah.
Or you're maybe moving out the area completely, and you're maybe going overseas. Or you're maybe moving to a property you've got already. So therefore, any gains that you're getting on your existing property is actually a true gain to the value, and it's a true gain for you, and it's a tax-free gain as well, because it's your principal private residence. And your next property is where you'll go to, but you've locked in your gain already.
I think that if people do decide to stay put because their mind is a mush and they don't really understand it, or they're disappointed with the valuation, that's a shame, because major life changes around them could be their work, could be their families, could be relationships, could be retirements. They have profound, long-lasting impacts and effects on what's happening with your house.
Yeah, see the amount of times I've heard this, and where somebody says, "I'm not moving because I'm wanting £5,000 extra," and I'm like, "Wait a minute, how much is the value of your house?" "Oh, it's 300,000," and you're quibbling about £5,000. It's like, and what are you trying to achieve? "Oh, well, I desperately need a bungalow because I can't manage the stairs." So you're going to torment yourself where you are right now for the rest of your life for £5,000. And how long are you going to last? Oh, probably another 20 years. And I'm quite upfront with people. I'm quite blunt with people in terms of, surprise, eh? No, not really. I'm really no, but I'm quite like, I'll just give it to you straight, so you understand what's going on here. You're going to compromise the rest of your life, the next 20 years, the best quality of life possible. We're getting a bungalow, all for the fact that you're wanting another £5,000, and you're going to put up with these stairs that you've got in your house now for the next 20 years.
It's not a great approach. It is madness. And actually, I've had an example where someone did that for the sake of 10,000, didn't sell, took another 6 months to then get a price they were happy to accept, which was less than the original one, and they lost more than 10.
Yeah, I've seen that as well. It's the deal or no deal. Look, I've opened the box. You're getting offered 250,000. Oh, it's too early days for that. It's like, I've only just put it on the market. I'm just going to wait. And I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. That's a really good offer. Your house is only 230,000. It's 250. Aye, but it's like, there'll be somebody else that'll come along and offer more. I've actually experienced the case where 6 months or 9 months later, they've had to take off the market and stay where they are, because no one came along to offer them anything at all. Because of that, they should have just gone for the first offer. So this is why it's important to take the right advice from your estate agent. But your estate agent needs to back it up with facts. They need to back it up with the whys. Why are you advising me right now? I mean, if the motivation for the estate agent is, I'm only advising you so I can get the fee because I need it quickly turned around because I'm skint, that's no the answer to the question. You need to know, and you need to have some credible response behind that, and behind why they are recommending right now. And the why, here's the why. Here could be the why. At this point in time, your price point is not attracting a lot of interest. In other words, there's no one else lined up to view so far. We're not getting much activity on the clicks through the website. So they're not getting, so this person's come out the blue, and this person's probably been waiting in the market for the last 6 months in rented accommodation to buy your property. So when your property's appeared, they're ready to go, but you're not ready to sell because you've only been on the market for a short period of time. That's when you have to realise and take stock of the fact that it's the buyers that have been in the market that you need to think about. How long have they been in the market, not how long you've been on the market, is the most important thing. Because if there's no more buyers lined up, then that's the only fish in the pond. You can't get another fish if there's only one fish in this pond. That's effectively what it is. So this is why I talk about a lot about the deal or no deal. Now think about this. This is a great one if you're a seller out there and you're considering accepting an offer. Think about it this way. If you watch Deal or No Deal, I'll remember Noel Edmonds' Deal or No Deal. I know it's somebody else doing it now. But if you're sitting watching Deal or No Deal, they've opened the box, your house is getting, your offer's there. It's maybe 290,000. Now your property is maybe on at possibly 295,000, 300,000, for example. If they're the only person that's available at that point in time, and in the marketplace at that point in time, it's made you an offer, and you are adamant in your mind, this is why your mindset blocks you sometimes. You're adamant in your mind, I'm wanting home report value. You've got to go back to thinking to yourself, is the home report value really the true value in the first place? You know, was it a true reflection? Is there clear evidence that that home report is the right price? And then you've got to think about as well, is, are you going to let that £10,000 hold you back from moving on to the next stage in your life? If you're away for 10 years, for example, or 20 years, for example, like I said before, right, for that amount of money, so we're taking 10,000, okay, divide it by the 20, that's £500 a year. So that decision to sell to that person, it's the only person in the marketplace at that point in time, for £500, it's going to cost you extra a year, effectively, to do that, to have your peace of mind and have the next point in your journey for the next 20 years. Remember, you're not going round a second time. You're no coming back.
This is it.
And it ain't a dress rehearsal.
Yeah.
It's all fire and brimstone this morning, eh?
We'll make you have a sunny Saturday morning.
It's true though. It's true
It's
though.
very true.
The one thing is that it's a lot of people let their mindset block their mind, block their decisions because they're adamant at the beginning that this is what they want to exit, but they don't realise. So there's other ways to do this. So if you're compromised maybe by a £10,000 differential, there's a potential that you could actually get that off the person that you're buying from. So in other words, when you're making an offer, you can maybe reduce your offer in order to compensate for the money that you're actually taking to reduce from there. So see how that's done. That's all moving from people to people. And then the next person will probably do the same thing. It does happen.
It does happen. I think that's the key. I mean, there are things to consider when you're reviewing your next steps, if that's the situation for you in regards to your mindset. And it's not necessarily true that no buyer will pay your asking price.
Yeah.
Most are more concerned with getting a home that they love rather than getting a bargain.
Yeah, but that's a knowledgeable and experienced estate agent can actually get that figure. And the reason for that is because they understand the buyer's needs.
Yeah.
And they effectively know what buttons to push.
Yes.
In order to get that and maintain that price point for you. Exactly. What else do we need to think about then?
Well, you talk about the home report there and the value of it and how some people won't shift from it, but your asking price is purely to ignite interest in the property at the end of the day.
Yeah.
It can be under, it can be over, or actually you might end up getting the same, or maybe a little bit less than a year ago. But it really depends on what your strategy for your home is, what your timeline is, what's actually driving you. We talk about this all the time, Jim, don't we? It's your circumstances that are driving this decision. So what is it that's driving it and how quickly do you need to make that happen?
I could wait forever. It's like, well, why are you on the market then if that's the case? If you could wait forever, why are you on the market? What was the urgency then? You know, because I remember when we had this conversation, it was like, I want to be on next week.
Yeah.
Well, wait a minute. So if you could wait forever, why on next week? Why did we not take a wee bit more time to think about the strategy overall? And why did we not take a bit more time to think about the market and where we are right now? And that's the sort of things an estate agent should be doing. And bringing you back to what other things do we think about then?
I think the thing to think about as well when we talk about circumstances, are you downsizing? And if you are, remember that the gap between your selling and buying, it might be different to what it was a year ago. It might be less. It might be more. Depends where you are.
True. Because remember, the buyer's actually getting this information from the news, and the news is actually saying about the Halifax. We go back to the Halifax, we go back to the Nationwide. They've got a lot to answer for, because the Halifax and the Nationwide pump out figures mainly for mainland England. And mainland England is a completely different property market from Scotland, because England actually work on the principle that they put the offers at the very, very top and the asking price, and they expect to come down. Whereas Scotland, we start at the bottom and we expect to push up.
Yeah.
And somewhere in between is where it's met. So the English market and the Scottish market is completely different. So when you hear things like Halifax and you hear things like Nationwide on the news, it's the national news, remember. It's not the local news. It's not actually a reflection of what's happening in your market right now. It's what's happening in the English market, really, predominantly, because that's where they do most of their business.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's something for you to consider 100%. For us, we see it as our duty, I guess, is the way that we operate, is to be totally upfront and transparent, don't we? It's important to be that way. Issues like accurate pricing are vital. You gave a good example there earlier on, Jim, when you talked about the 600, 650s, maybe even 7. We want to help you start enjoying the next chapter of the journey as well. You want to start your new life as soon as possible. And it's interesting because when I was speaking to someone yesterday about that, and they were talking through their journey, and I said that to them, I said, do you know something? I says, people think estate agency is about selling houses. It's not. That's a byproduct of what we do. It's not about selling houses. It's about matching people and taking them on the journey to their life that they want to have next. Houses are the byproduct of that.
Helping you manage life as it happens.
Yeah.
Effectively, honestly, that's what it is.
And the client kind of looked at me and they were like, actually, that's true, isn't it?
It's nothing to do with the house sale, really. It's circumstances. It's how am I going to get you from A to B based on the conversation that we've had, and how am I going to solve your problems and actually make it as stress-free and relaxed as possible. And often that's what we come back to about saying sometimes the buyers and the sellers' mindsets actually block the move overall because they've got this preconceived idea about how this is going to pan out. So it's about having a skilled negotiator in order to see their way through that and actually help the buyer and the seller through that process in order to have a win-win situation. It has to be a win-win situation. If you've got a win-lose situation or a lose-win situation, that doesn't work. That's a recipe for disaster. Because I'll guarantee you, when it gets to conveyancing, when the lawyers get a hold of it, that's where it all goes pear-shaped. And that's where problems appear in titles. And if you've got a lose-win or a win-lose situation on either side where somebody's losing, there's going to be a bit of friction later on. I'll guarantee you that. So 100%. You need to make sure you've got a clear win-win situation when it goes to the solicitor for the conveyancing work.
Negotiating as well, though, for me, Jim, people automatically, when they're thinking of houses and negotiating, people tie that into the number that you're going to achieve for the property. The negotiation is not just about that. The negotiation could be with that particular buyer as well. Everything's about compromise, isn't it? So they might go to that house and it takes 95% of everything they want, and they go, I just wish, though, that it had that, or I wish that was like this. And our question always is, well, if we could make that happen, would it make you buy it?
Yeah.
So it's about negotiating that as well.
Absolutely. Okay, leave it with me and I'll see what I could do. And then you could work it from there. You could work in it from there and see what happens. And I've done that loads of times. I did that with a garage. There was no way we could put a garage anywhere. And the guy said, if this house had it's no got a garage. And the first thing response to that was, well, if it did have a garage, would you buy it? And I went, but you can't put a garage anywhere. But hold it. I'm just thinking about the next house. If I've got exactly the same sort of house and I can have a garage, or it does have a garage, then I'll know exactly what you need for the next transaction. And he said to me, yeah, if it did have a garage, I would buy it. So I showed him a way where I could put a garage onto it.
Mhm. Exactly.
And he had to buy it.
And that's the thing, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, and that's effectively what it is. I mean, how could you go back on your word saying, yeah, but I did have a garage, if it had the capacity to have a garage, I'd buy it. And you can do things like that. It is entirely possible, but there's some occasions where you can't, and then you can solve that problem for the buyer for the next viewing
Yeah.
that they have, because there's no point in taking them around continuously to the same property or the same type of property every single
Yeah.
time if the deal breaker is definitely a garage.
Mhm. Absolutely. So why don't buyers just make a lower offer then, Jim?
That's a good question. Something that actually comes up from homeowners during a review of their asking prices. Yeah, exactly. It comes up every single time. Why don't people just make a lower offer? And it's fair enough thing to ask. So, what sort of things? What sort of things actually, actually affect that then, Perry?
So, I mean, they can rarely happen, but given that almost every property search starts online, everybody does. With us, maybe not necessarily online, you're more probably looking at your phone because that's where we do all of our social media. But buyers only see homes in the price ranges tend to be the ones that they're looking for. So they select on property portals to match their budget. So if I've got a budget of 300, I'm going to just look at the houses at 300. When actually there might be ways around that. So that's maybe when they'll end up lowering, because if they then look at something higher, they may turn around and go, well, actually, I really like the house, but I'm not willing to pay that because my budget's only 300.
Okay, so here's the rule of thumb here. Did you know that most buyers, and most buyers out there will probably just agree with me, that most buyers, when they set their budget, they actually potentially have 10% more than what their
Yeah.
budget is,
Mm-hmm.
and they don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And it's they don't know because they don't know how to get that extra 10% more.
Mm-hmm.
But we do know how to get that extra 10% more. So if that extra little bit is stopping you from getting the dream house that you want, or you need, remember,
Mm-hmm.
need is probably the more important thing here, then it's potentially we could actually show you how to get that. And
Mm-hmm.
that's why it's important. Again, it's, essentially we're working on behalf of the seller, but it's important to get the buyer, in a position where they could actually make the offer that the seller can't refuse. That's the whole
Absolutely.
point. So we work with the buyers quite a lot in order
Mm-hmm.
to understand their needs, in order to get them what they really want, in order to
Mm-hmm.
make and effectively in order to make their dreams come true. We're wish granters.
Well,
Hey, make a wish.
yeah,
Make a
it kind of
wish.
is like that. I think it's important what you've just said there, actually. I just want to kind of recover that part because, yes, we work for the sellers, but our job working for the seller is to find that buyer. So
Yeah.
we need to work with all those buyers, because if we don't find the buyer, we've done nothing for the seller.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah.
So I think
So
that's
given that
important.
almost every property is like what you said, is search online, buyers only see homes and price ranges, then this is why we talk a lot about realigning prices.
Mm-hmm.
So when a house isn't moving that well, we do say to people, look, realign your price point, your entry point for people, because it'll bring it down to a price banding just below where it'll actually appeal to people, a
Mm-hmm.
new audience.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we've just spoken about this before, that the new audience doesn't realise they could probably offer 10% more than what their budget is anyway,
Mm-hmm.
because they don't understand where to get that extra money over and above
Mm-hmm.
without pushing themselves beyond the limits. Remember, this is all about being creative in order to get them what they really want,
Mm-hmm.
and make it happen for them. So it's not about manipulating anything. It's just about, you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
So our job is to tell you what you don't know, and your job is just to decide whether that's okay for you based on your personal circumstances.
We give you
But,
choices to make.
but getting the information and knowledge is the most important thing. So if
Mm-hmm.
the asking price is 20 to 25% too much, which in England it sometimes is actually, because
Mm-hmm.
it's the stage and set the price, not the surveyors.
Mm-hmm.
Um, then the right buyer will never see that listing and know about the owner's willingness to negotiate,
Mm-hmm.
especially in England, but
Mm-hmm.
equally here on some sort
Equally.
of price level as well.
Mm-hmm.
Where sometimes, I'll be honest, I would rather have a higher home report, because the higher home report will give access to higher financing for a buyer. Because a buyer really wants that house. If the home report has been set too low because the knowledge and expertise of the surveyor has done the job, actually, they don't understand the price point. And I'll give you a classic example. This happened in Cellar Dyke recently, where I went round to value somebody's house, and I saw the other one across the road, and the one across the road was exactly like the ones in Scooney and Leaving, and yet it was at the same price point, because it was a Leaving estate agent that actually put it on. And it was at the same price point. A 3-bedroom semi-detached house, ex-local authority, like in Scooney and Leaving, was on at 190 grand, or was it 180? In Cellar Dyke. You're having a laugh. And what's happened there is, because that home report's been set too low, is all the first-time buyers desperately wanted, or the upgraders from the apartments and the flats, wanted that house, were no longer able to afford to offer the right price because they couldn't get the financing. They could only get it up to the 180 or 190, whatever the home report was. But if the home report would have been in the right place in the first place, which is about 210 or 220,000, then they could have got up to that, and then they could have probably paid a wee bit extra, and that house will have probably gone for about 250.
And that's a key factor, actually, when you talk about lending, because most mortgage lenders will only lend 95% of what that home report's valued at.
The home report is every single time. They're not going to do anything different.
No.
They're not going to give you any more. Everything else has to come out your own pocket. So the
Yeah.
people that live locally will not be able to afford these houses if the home report's set at the wrong price point. So you're better to have a higher home report and come down. It's a classic analogy that I use all the time. I'd rather shoot for the stars and catch the moon on the way down than try to go for the moon and then try to get to the stars after it. Because that's two propulsions in a rocket when you look at it like that. Whereas the one propulsion going straight for the stars and letting natural momentum bring you back down to the moon is probably the best and least effort to do.
But the right pricing as well is really important on the home report, if we're talking about first buyers in particular. So historically, what they'll have done is they'll have saved money and they'll have their deposit, but they'll also within that have a monetary amount, thinking, I might want to put a new bathroom in, I might need to put a new kitchen in, there might be things I need to change. If the home report's not set right, then to get that house, the chances are that they're going to have to put more of their cash into it, which they don't want to do. So if the home report is right and they can borrow more money, it allows them to free up more cash, which actually allows them as well, not only to get the house that they want, but actually to pay the seller more.
Yeah. But if you're old school like me, and possibly like you, you'll live in the building site for the next 10 years. Because you desperately want the house anyway. So you'll just live in a building site and you'll change the bathrooms and the kitchens as you go and live in it.
Yeah.
Suck it up, buttercup, is the expression. But it's true, isn't it? Old school did that. You know, old school people did that. The old brigade did that. It's like, well, I'll just move in. I'll do the heating. I'll do the woodworm treatment and all the rest of it. I'll do the rot and everything like that when I'm actually living in the property, rather than actually, oh no, it's got to be perfect before I move in. That's something that's often. I don't see it too much now, but maybe about 5 or 6 years ago, I did see that quite a lot with maybe the younger generation, where they just wanted everything brand new before they actually moved into the property. And some still do, and that's fine, because they don't need to spend any more money, and it can all be remortgaged when you think about it, and the bank could pay the finance on it, and they could clearly afford the finance every single month because they've been stress tested anyway in terms of the higher rate mortgages. So they can clearly afford it. That's fine. And they just want that sort of thing. But I did go through a period of time, you know, about 5 or 6 years ago, where everybody just wanted everything brand new, and they weren't prepared to do anything to that property to actually get it. Which is in the way I would work, it's like, if I desperately wanted a property, I would actually move into it beforehand and just get on with it when I'm in it.
I would,
because it's the one I want. I mean, you've got to be living it for the next 10 or 20 years, possibly. If it's the perfect family home, and your family's going to grow up in it and everything like that. In retrospect as well, when I look back on how I grew up, this is how I grew up. I remember we moved into St Helens at East Links, and literally my dad bought it for £20,000. And we had to, I remember having to do all the nitromors myself on the doors to strip all the paint back. And I was 11 years old. Pair of rubber, I didn't even think we had rubber gloves at that time.
Rubber gloves, we wouldn't have had them then. Get your hands in.
Wire wool and nitromors all the way through. And I remember, you know, my dad went up himself and he sprayed the whole attic with the woodworm treatment as well. And we literally just slept in that. Whether it's going to have repercussions later on, I don't know. But I remember as well, we sat there and we had no radiators on the walls for weeks. We had no radiators because everything was getting decorated and everything was getting treated. And ice was on the windows because it was all single glazed at that time as well. There was no double glazing. I know people out there saying my heart bleeds for you. Get the violins out. But that's the type of thing. That's the type of thing that you need to do if you desperately want a house, and it's going to be the house that you're probably going to live in for a lot of years.
I know.
That,
We sound like a
personally, in my
right couple of
opinion,
old fogies this morning, don't we?
I know. It's like,
Bath and mugs.
is there a female version of Jack and Victor?
I think this is it. Oh dear. Aside from that, though,
yeah,
what is it
aside
like?
from that, investors, most buyers aren't that cheeky and don't want to appear rude, so they don't tend to search for more than 10% above their budget. I would say, and you know, they do now and again, but if you realign it to get it to that price point where it should be, I mean, the strategy is you put your price high in the first place. There's no reason why you wouldn't put. There's no reason why you would put it lower straight away. You're basically off the gambit. You're telling people you're wanting less. It's like, well, wait a minute, no. Put it high, realign it later on if it doesn't work with that strategy, and that's your second bite at the cherry. And then you realign it to a price point to catch a different audience. And then when you catch that person, you push them back up when they're in the door.
Yeah.
Because they never saw it in the first place. They're not seeing it again because they weren't in that price band in the first place when they were searching. So you bring it back down to that price band where it will catch them just below there, and then that gets them through the door, and then you push them back up a wee bit because they do have the money to pay a wee bit more.
Exactly. I mean, there's a lot of information in there, isn't there? But I mean, I think in the most basic terms, the way to put that is that a home that's on the market for a price that is too high will only be seen by the people that expect more for their money.
Yeah.
And not by those people who will buy it.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, definitely. So will waiting cost you more than trading up then?
Nobody wants to sell their house for less, do they, at the end of the day? They've got a hope of what they want that to be. But what they often miss is that trading up costs more when prices are rising fast as well. So you have to think about that. You know, we talked about how it is in the market as a national level, but in Fife, we've still seen prices rising. So I'm going to wait till it's at this point. Well, actually, if you wait till it's at this price point, the one that you want to buy will be at a different price point and a higher price point as well. So actually, you're just nullifying the numbers, aren't you? In some instances.
And if your higher price point has gone up in price, the differential with going up in price, the incremental cost to you is more by waiting to trade up.
Exactly.
So you want to trade up as quick as possible. Likewise, the flip side of that is when you're trading down, you know, if yours is going up quicker and the trading down is going up quicker, but you're going down to a lower price point, you're actually getting a benefit then.
Yeah, I guess it depends on your circumstances, doesn't it? I think given that
it's speaking to an expert, a stage agent, actually quite knowledgeable. It understands the remit or what they're meant to be doing here, in order to get you the right circumstances, to get you the best offer and the best circumstances surrounding it. Because often some properties, you know, regardless of what it is like right now, I mean, it's a slower market clearly because it's back to 2019 sort of speed in terms of selling. It's taking an average probably about 2 months to sell a property. That's just a fact in the Fife area. But the key here is it's to make sure that you get an estate agent that could advise you on what you should be doing based on your personal circumstances, and not based on well, let's be honest, based on what their remit is, which is maybe just to sell the property and get the fee.
And to get a word out.
Yeah, possibly, yeah. Possibly.
You know, there's the ways and means of why people do things. But when we look at the types of people that are buying, though, I mean, given that most people do sell and they buy a more expensive house, don't they? And they do that generally because they need or would like more space, a bigger garden maybe, or a better location. We have that even in Fife, haven't we? We've got our little zones and price points where a 3-bedroom semi here, as you've just demonstrated, Jim, in Leven, is very different to a 3-bedroom semi cellar. So it depends where you want to be.
It'll be interesting when you talk about location. It'll be interesting to see what in the next couple of years, how the effect of the Levenmouth train station will have on Aberhill, for example. And I'm talking about White Rose Terrace, and I'm talking about Taylor Street. Because a lot of people locally will just like, oh no, and you don't want to go to places like that. And it's like, well, wait a minute. It's right next door to the train station. Surely that has to tick for something. It's right next door to the swimming pool. It's right next door to the retail park. It's right next door to the high street. And dare I say, tongue in cheek, It's right next door to the Fife Coastal Path.
It is though. It is though.
It could be on it soon.
I love
The
that
way
beach
we're
down
going.
there. I know. I love that beach down there, honestly. But I think it's important for people to look at that, isn't it? And it makes sense to do it when prices are at a point that are affordable to you, not necessarily what you think they might become. So
Yeah.
with that in mind, what should folk be considering, Jim?
Locations or homes that were previously out of your budget could now be within it.
Mhm.
Meaning you can buy a bigger or better property than you actually might have thought.
Yeah.
If you're selling at 400,000, say, and buying at 600,000, I know in the Fife area it's like, well, wait a minute, the average price is 180 grand. Well, just say if you're selling at 200 and you're buying at 250,
Mhm.
you know, a price fall of 10% reduces your sale price, you know, by an automatic amount. For example, the 250, the 200 is 20,000, and a price fall of 250,000 is 25,000.
Mhm.
So it's putting more money in your pocket actually with that,
Mhm.
in that retrospect.
Mhm.
I mean, it's extra money to slash your things like, you know, stamp duty, moving costs,
Mhm.
estate agent costs,
Mhm.
all these different things, new furniture cost,
Mhm.
decoration, carpets,
Mhm.
improvements, all these different things. I could buy some fantastic furniture
Mhm.
and invest in some luxury upgrades. There's no surprise, you know. I remember getting 100,000 more for someone, and they were like, they could not believe I managed to do that. They were like,
Mhm.
"Sorry, did you say 305?" And I went, "No, 405."
Mhm.
And they're like, 100,000 extra? Yeah, 100,000 extra. I'm like, wow. Now, at the
Mhm.
time, they had no idea, but I remember them phoning me back and saying, you know, this is a blessing in disguise. I don't know how this came about, but my daughter actually needed an amount equivalent to that, you know, out of the blue for some reason because of a house move that she was doing. He says,
Mhm.
and the thing is, we were able to help that happen for her
Mhm.
because of our circumstances.
Mhm.
So it's these I mean, I'm not saying that's going to happen for everybody right now in
No.
this type of market, but if it's an extra 5,000, it's an extra 10,000, if it's an extra 15,000, it just goes to paying some of the bills and giving you a wee bit more luxurious upgrades and give you a wee bit more choices in terms of what you want to do.
Mhm.
So from purely a financial stance and even forgetting the lifestyle improvements, you're
Mhm.
generally better off upsizing during a price correction, which is good news for most sellers.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've covered quite a lot about the seller and their thinking and what they should be doing, but a good thing to look at now is probably, is your agent actually getting in your way?
Sorry? It's,
It
it's
could
like,
happen.
I hope none of our customers are watching this. Hey, listen, I'll be honest. Once in a blue moon, people do actually genuinely think I'm in the way. It's
Mhm.
like, really? It's like I could see it straight away. I could see a clear path to where you're needing to go.
Mhm.
But it's this thing about the mindset. Their mindset blocks them from actually seeing that because they've
Mhm.
made their decision before they've even spoke to me.
Yeah.
This is the classic example about, and I'll tell you this. I'll tell you this tongue in cheek because I used to fall out with my mum before I got to the house because I'd already had the conversation in my mind about what was going to happen before I even walked in that door. So as soon as
Mhm.
my mum opened her mouth, I went, "Well, stick it then. I'm away home." And it's like my mum's sitting going, "What happened there?" It's like,
I haven't said anything.
because I had this conversation in my mind, and
Yeah.
that's often what people do before
Mhm.
they come on to speak to their estate agent. They've got
Yeah.
this preconceived idea about how this conversation is going to go,
Mhm.
and I tell you, most of them have the preconceived idea about
Mhm.
it's going to be negative.
Mhm.
They're going to talk me out of it, or they're going to do something. It's like they desperately want to make a decision on something, and they
Mhm.
think the stages and
Yeah.
any sign, flight or fight response. Remember, any
Mhm.
sign that gives them any evidence at all, it is going to go the wrong way of them. What they have preconceived before they speak to their agent, that's it. It all blows
The
up on their
check out.
day.
Mhm.
There's no. Let's go on and hear what they've got to say first.
Mhm.
There's like, I've made my decision. I want it to go this way. And everything that you say, no matter what it is, this is the decision.
Mhm. Mhm.
I've often caught people out by going, "You're absolutely right." And they go, "What? Eh?" Eh? What? What did you just say?
Using it all
You're
together.
absolutely right. I completely agree with you 100%. Can't disagree with that at all. And I'm like, there's nowhere to go with that. And still they argue it. What do you mean I'm right? It's like, what? I just agreed with you. And it's just, but it's just to emphasize and show that the very
Yeah.
fact. And then I would come back to say to them, you had this preconceived idea before you even spoke to me. You
Mhm.
had decided this was the case, because
Mhm.
you wouldn't be sitting here arguing with me now if that's the case. If
Mhm.
the fact that with me saying you're absolutely right, and then they see sense, and
Yeah.
then they realize the error of their ways, and then they begin to listen. They understand what the remit is now and what
Yeah.
you're trying to achieve for them overall, and they understand how their mindset has actually blocked them from moving forward
Mhm.
in the way they
Yeah.
do things. So
Agreed.
it's normal. It's normal. It's very perfectly normal to think that when your property isn't selling, the price must be too high,
Mhm.
or the estate agent must be the problem here.
Mhm.
But you've got to think about things like this. If you're a estate agent that's selling properties like they're going out of fashion everywhere else in their business, where do you think the problem really lies?
Mhm.
It's your property.
Mhm.
It's yours. And if you're not listening to your estate agent and what their advice is at that point in time, and you're refusing to listen to it at all, and I don't mean listen to it, I mean hear it. You
Mhm.
refuse to hear it. In other words, their lips are moving, but it ain't going into here. You're not
Mhm.
letting it. So often you need to just step back, take a deep breath, let it go. As they say in Frozen, let it go. Let it go. You've been
Frozen
hearing
like
that.
that this morning.
I've got you all singing that song now, haven't I? See how
Cheers to
that
that.
influences. See how advertising influences. Yeah, if advertising didn't influence anybody, Coca-Cola would never advertise them. That's why they're the biggest drink company in the world.
Holidays
And
are
that's
coming.
what, yeah. So, so you need to let it go. You need to be more open, and you just need to hear. You need to hear and listen to what your estate agent has got to say first before you make that rash decision about where you think this conversation is going to go. That's the hope. Now, I get a lot of clients speaking to me. Over the years, I've had a lot of clients speaking to me about similar situations, and everything's been easily resolved. We've moved forward with it, and then we've solved the problem. Their house is sold, job done, 5 stars.
Yeah.
They have not realized that their preconceived idea has stood in the way of them moving forward. It's a natural human behavior to actually happen. And one of the things is that, does your price simply need an upward tweak, or a straddle 2 price bands on the property portals? And I really mean it. See the amount of times it's people put a property on and it's sitting at offers over 199,950. Oh my God. Oh my God. Why have you let your estate agent do that? That is old mentality. That's the Willies mentality. 9.99 or 99 pence. That's home bargains. Your house isn't home bargains, by the way.
No,
It's
exactly.
not. It's your biggest tax-free asset,
Mhm.
and it's your job of your estate agent to get the best price possible. And
Mhm.
putting it on it offers over £199,950 is losing you every seller from 200,000 upwards, because that
Yeah.
is the next price band on every search on every website.
Mhm.
0 to 200,000, 150 to 200,000. It doesn't go 150 to 199,950.
Mhm.
So you've lost everybody from 200,000 upwards. If your home report's at 200,000, you're either going to put it at 190,000, which is the price band below that, the 10,000 price band on the websites. So you've got 190, everybody up to 190, everybody from 190, or you're going to put it at 200,000, everybody up to 200,000, everybody from 200,000.
Yeah.
You're missing half of your audience. And it's
Mhm.
the half of the audience from the 200,000 onwards where you're going to be the lowest price point compared to everybody else. Oh my God, that's the best opportunity for you to sell your property.
Yeah.
And you've just let the estate agent go, oh, but that's the highest price point, so we better take it down for that. But it's the smallest price point, it's the lowest with everybody else from 200,000 upwards.
It's a big factor.
How advantageous is that, having that price banding? And yet there's so many estate agents still do £199,950, £900 or £500. You know, 199,000. You know, £99,500. 199,000, 196,000, 197,000, 198,000. That's still no good. That's still, you lost half your audience, the 200,000 and upwards. So don't let your estate agent do that. Make sure you've got that. Check your property right now and make sure it straddles a price band. That's one of the key points there. Other thing to look for, is there actually any scope for improvement in your photographs and description presentation? Is there wonky or dark images? Geez, there's one estate agent is they're guilty every single time of that. I think they actually just go through on their phone. I think they just take their phone photos. And while their phone photos are great for you going out and entertaining and having friends and family and on Facebook, it's certainly not any good at all for going on websites. Because when Google collates your photographs, because Google indexes all the information that comes onto the internet, and it collects it and gathers it. If you've got, and I'll say it, if you've got a shitty photograph, Google is going to downgrade it and you're never going to get it seen. Your listing gets downgraded as well by Google. I bet it's on Rightmove. But when people do searches, they don't go to Rightmove. They type in properties for sale in so-and-so on Google. Rightmove isn't the biggest search engine. It's Google. The next biggest search engine is your YouTube. So the next biggest search engine is YouTube outside of Google. So you should be appealing to YouTube, video, photographs, Google.
Yeah.
You should have the best quality photographs ever. And if more people start to click on these photographs and look at these photographs, Google deem it important and push it up the rankings because they realize that other people find it important. It's like, Google's a bit like a librarian. You go to a library and you ask someone for the, can I have information on the best property available for sale in, for example, in London Links? Now, Google is immediately going to go, okay, so how many properties are actually for sale in my data bank? You know, how many can I see when I've indexed everything? Okay, there's about 6. How many people are clicking on one of them the most? That's the one they put to the top out of that. Because that's the most people are clicking on it. Because they deem it, most people clicking on it means it must be more important. It must be more, it must be more desirable. It must have more information on it. It must be something more compelling. That's how Google work. So if you go to a librarian like what Google is and say, can you give me the shittiest property in London Links, then that's when your property will probably appear because the agent's taking it on a mobile phone. Let's be honest.
There are other words we could use, but we'll stick with that one.
I'll call it a spade. Like, call it how it is. Shoot from the hip. So there is there scope for improvement? Is your photographs and your description, your presentation? Have you got wonky dark images? Is it lackluster text? Oh my God! If somebody says, you know, it's a hey, welcome, the Reverend I Am Jolly. Good evening. This is a 3-bedroom, 2 reception, semi-detached property. It has a lounge, has a sitting room, has a bathroom. How boring is that? It's like, where's the compelling words here? What is it to me? Where is it near? Where is it near? Is it near the seaside? Then say it's near the seaside. Is it near St Andrews? Then tell people it's just outside St Andrews. If it's got a fantastic historic golf course, tell people it's got a fantastic historic golf course. Tell them all these emotive, interesting things about the area, because that's what they're buying. They're buying the lifestyle. They know about the property already. They've just clicked on it. They've just clicked on it. They've just seen it on the website. They know it's got 4 bedrooms already. You don't need to tell them that again. It says it in the title when they click on it. They're even their search is probably for 4 bedrooms. Even their search is for probably that price banding. So why do you need to spend so much time? The other bugbear for me is when an estate agent starts to talk about themselves before they even talk about the property. So-and-so's proud to present. That's the key. That's like the end aisle in the supermarket. Oh my God.
That's your whoopsie
That's
aisle.
like having the premium brand bit. Premium. And it's like so-and-so's proud to present. It's like, holy shit. You've just taken the primary text away from the property itself because you've to advertise your own business. That's a real one. That's a real bugbear for me. When and a lot of people, you'll now realise it now if you're tuning into this, if you're listening to this, and you'll be able to watch out for it if you're selling a property. But watch out for that. A lot of agents, well, not a lot, a few agents actually spend a lot of time putting their own information on there about their mortgages availability, about their businesses and all the rest of it before and after your property. And it's like, it's not an advertisement for them. It's an advertisement meant to be for you.
Not just even on the description, Jim, they actually do it on the photographs as well. So if you click on the listing and you go through the photos, you'll see the lounge photo and then a sticky board with the estate agent's name. And then you have to go to the next one to see the next picture of the house.
Especially on Facebook, you see that.
And then
it comes up with their own name. It's like, I don't want to know about you. Exactly. I want to know about the property.
Yeah. But so that is important key, actually.
And the irony is it's the seller that's paid for it. So you've paid to advertise their business. That's the one it used to, and again, another thing that used to happen, it's like, it used to ring around, it's like, we've got the newspaper to fill, okay, just tell people it's like 95 quid for the newspaper advert, and we could put them all in. But the whole point of the newspaper advert was really not to advertise your property to the public, it was actually just to advertise their brand. That's the whole point of that. It was only just to advertise their brand every single time. You are paying for that. That's what you've got to watch out for. You've got to watch out for these wee tricks that they use. So when you're looking at your property, is your agent in the way, as I said before? Is your agent out of ideas or losing their enthusiasm? It could happen after a while. So have an open conversation to see if you want to stay or if it's really time to move on from them. Now, if you've got an agent, it understands your needs, they understand the market, that understands that they've got all the right things, and they're selling all their properties with all the other properties, no bother. I've got to say the problem lies with you. And it's hard for people to hear that, you know, that because if you've got 100 properties on the market and you've just sold 99 of them, and this one's sticking, and you're complaining as a seller saying, why is mine not selling? It's like, if you've been given the advice that they've been given and you're not taking that advice, then that's why it's not selling. This is, again, your mindset blocking it. It's not selling for that reason. Oh, I don't want to reduce. Whoa, wait a minute. Who says you need to reduce your price? You've not accepted anything yet. You're only realigning the price point in the beginning. You're only bringing it down to an acceptable level to possibly push someone back up when you get in the door, when you introduce it to a new audience. Oh, it's got to be the photographs. Who says it's got to be the photographs? If it's the same photographer and it's the same photographs and the same process as they're doing with other 99 properties, how could it be the photographs? And the click-throughs right as well. Oh, it's got to be the description. Wait a minute. If they've got 99 other properties they've just sold with the same format and description, remember, and then your description is more or less the same alignment with that, because you don't just change to a completely different format for that. Then it's got to be back to the property. Sometimes somebody at that point in time just doesn't want your property. You just have to accept that. The buyer is not in the marketplace at that point in time for your property. It's a waiting game. But you know what happens? Is sometimes some sellers put them under extreme pressure by actually going and offering on another property and only having a set period of time in order to get an offer on their property. And that causes frustration all the way around and no end of stress for the seller and also for the estate agents. But who do you think gets the blame? The estate agent. And yes, the seller has done it to themselves. See that a lot of times. I see that a lot of times in other people as well, you know, because I've spoken to other buyers and they're on with other agents and they made an offer and they've got their house in the market and I'm saying, how's your house, how's your house going? Is it selling? Oh, it's like it's this and it's that. And I'm like, let's look at your listing. And I'll look at their listing and I'll look at their text, I'll look at their photographs, I'll look at everything else, I'll look at their floor plans, make sure their floor plan's colorized. That's quite an important thing. I know you think it's, for you personally, maybe if you're tuning in about the colorization of the floor plans, you think is it really that important? It's no to me. Yes, but it is to 75% of the audience because we're separated into 4 quartiles as human beings. and we all resonate on sight, sound, smell, touch, all these different things. And we resonate on one of them more than every other one. So when you think it's not important, you've got 75% of people that do think that's important. That's why it's important to have all these different things and tick all these different senses for different people and different types of buyers and different types of sellers as well.
Yeah.
That's the most important thing. So listen to your agent. Final thoughts on this for you, Perry?
I think the final thing for me is everyone's circumstances are different. You have to take into all the considerations, the things that we've spoken about. But actually, the primary thing, and it's what you've just said there, Jim, is you really need to have a look at yourself and how you're approaching it. If you feel that you're approaching it right, you've taken on board the advice that you've been given, then reach out to your agent if you feel that it is them. But you have to have a collaborated discussion. And if that collaborated discussion is not there, actually all you're going to get is a world of pain.
It can't be just one-sided, as I said before. Please do not have a preconceived conversation in your head before you actually speak to your agent. That's probably one of the most important things, because you think it's good, and it's the flight or fight, as I said before. It's the very fact that I've seen this story before. I've heard this conversation before with someone else, and I know how that turned out. So this is where this one's going as well. And it's not at all. It's definitely not at all. So just be open, be honest.
Yeah, we've got some comments, Jim, actually. Do you want to cover them? Because actually the point we're talking about just now is maybe relevant to Gail.
Mine has been the market since May and not had many viewings. It's so frustrating. Just don't know what to do. Probably ping it over on a private message to us, a link to the actual property itself. We'll have a look at it. So we'll just have a look at it. We'll see if the description's okay. We'll see if the photographs are okay. We'll check. We could check some of the key data as well. There is information that we can get from other places that you can't get access to. If they're on Rightmove, if they're on Zoopla, that we can get some of the data surrounding that, just in case they're not sharing it with you. Or they maybe don't know how to get it. It's amazing how many agents actually don't understand their analytics and their customer record management and stuff like that, and they just think, oh, just put a house on the market and hope for the best. So it's easy to do that, Gail. So just send a link over to us, and on any of the posts. If you're on YouTube, you'll not be able to do it that way privately. So you can message us direct on any of our Facebook pages.
Yeah.
If you're not on Facebook, you can email us on info@fifeproperties.co.uk as well. So you can get us through there. So whatever format you're on, you can get private messaging to us in some shape or form, or even email us at the last resort. It's funny that email's now the last resort.
I know.
It's like email used to be the first resort for everything, but email is actually taken over by Messenger now. So private messaging is obviously the way forward, and even WhatsApp as well. You can even WhatsApp us. You've probably got contact numbers for us. If you go onto our Meet the Experts on our website, you've got access to information from there on Meet the Experts. You can click in on any one of us and WhatsApp us if you want as well, with information that you've got, and we'll see what we can do for you. Dave actually says, "I've always said that success is best achieved by a balanced collaboration." Absolutely. Yeah. And that's kind of it. I mean, that's if anybody else wants any more information about that or anything else, then please feel free to message us. Primarily, you look at estate agents and think, oh, well, they just sell properties. But ultimately, the estate agent is here to give you the best advice based on and let your decision be based on facts rather than opinion of others who have no idea what they're talking about.
Correct. I think that's a good way to end.
Yeah, I always am. I've even got a big head, so I have to get a double door to get out in the morning. Anyway, that's it. Thanks very much for coming on, Perry. Thanks for everybody else tuning in. If you've got any questions later on or on the podcast, please feel free to reach out with us as well. And I keep hearing that song now every time I say reach out. Reach out. I'll be there. No, you do want to hear my singing. Anyway, that's it. Bye-bye for now, folks. And we'll see you next Saturday for the Fife Property Show. Bye-bye for now.
Take care. That'll be your way. Oh dear.